Hi, fourth graders. This is Thursday for our Liberty Tree. We're going to read two more chapters today and then finish up tomorrow. Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. When the sun rose over Boston Harbor on June 17, 1775, sailors on the British warship Lively awoke and stretched. Suddenly, one of them shouted in surprise. On a hill across the Charles River from Boston loomed a fort. It had not been there yesterday. Whistles blew and gunners raced on their battle stations. Soon, the Lively's cannons were spitting fire and black smoke. Other British warships joined in. American militiamen had worked secretly all night to build the fort. Now they crouched behind its walls as the British cannons thundered. The noise was terrifying. Swarms of redcoats arrived from Boston, crossing the river by boat. They lined up in battle formation on the beach. At any moment, they would charge. The Americans defending the fort were desperately short of ammunition. Some who had just arrived from New Hampshire had to stop and make bullets out of old pipes on their way into Boston. Every shot would have to count. Colonel William Prescott, the American commander, told his men, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." The redcoats trotted up the hill toward the fort, bayonets at the ready. It was absolutely quiet. Suddenly, a stream of gunfire poured out of the fort. The redcoats turned and ran back down the hill. But when they reached the beach, their officers beat them with the swords, forcing them to storm the fort again. And again, a deadly blast of gunfire mowed down the front ranks. The terrified survivors panicked and ran. The men who were left charged up the hill yet again, and suddenly the firing stopped. The Americans had run out of ammunition. Redcoats swarmed over the walls of the fort, pointing their deadly bayonets. Colonel William Prescott ordered a retreat. He himself was the last to leave the fort. When the Americans were gone, the British counted their dead. Almost half the soldiers who had set out that morning had been killed or wounded. The Battle of Bunker Hill showed both sides how terrible war would be, and it was too late to turn back. Even deadlier battles lay ahead. The British Major John Pitcairn, who had fought at Lexington and Concord, was killed during the last charge. He died in the arms of his son, a lieutenant. Altogether, close to 1,000 British soldiers died or were wounded in the battle. Dr. Joseph Warren, a beloved American patriot, died at the Battle of Bunker Hill. His body couldn't be recovered until the British left Boston almost a year later, but Paul Revere was able to identify his skeleton because he had wired 2 false teeth into the doctor's mouth not long before he died. Some militiamen were frightened. They avoided danger whenever they could. Once, 15 men used the excuse of having to help a wounded man to the rear. Overall, this last battle, the Battle of Bunker Hill, lost a lot of British soldiers and a lot of American soldiers. Women at war. American women didn't usually fight in the Revolutionary War, but they strongly supported the cause of liberty. I want you to pause the video here and think, before reading, what are some things that women during this time could do to help the American Revolutionary War? What are some things that women could do at this time to help the American Revolutionary War? When you're ready, unpause the video. A lady from Philadelphia expressed the feelings of many of her countrywomen when she wrote, "My only brother I have sent to the camp with my prayers and blessings. Had I 20 sons and brothers, they should go. Tea I have not drank since last Christmas." Remember, they boycotted tea, or they're refusing to buy it or use it to hurt the British. "Nor bought a new cap or gown. And this way I do throw my mite to the public good. I know this, that as free I can die but as a slave I shall not be worthy of life. I have the pleasure to assure you that these are the sentiments of all my Americans." Sybil Ludington. On the night of April 26, 1777, a messenger on horseback pounded up to the Ludington farm in New York State. He was carrying an important message for Colonel Henry Ludington. British soldiers were planning to attack Danbury, Connecticut, the next day. Colonial Ludington was not at home, but his 16-year-old daughter, Sybil, volunteered to alert her father's troops. She saddled a horse and rode through the countryside all night, knocking on doors and calling out the militiamen. The next day, the British attacked Danbury. They burned the city, but many of their soldiers were killed. The men Sybil had awakened had reached Danbury in time to give the British a real fight. Molly Pitcher. Some women went to war with their husbands. They didn't fight in the battles, but they worked in camp, cooking, cleaning, and nursing the wounded. One such woman was Mary Ludwig, usually called Molly. Her husband was a gunner in the 1st Pennsylvania Artillery. On a very hot day in June 1778, an important battle took place, the Battle of Mammoth. The soldiers got very thirsty. Molly took some pitchers to a nearby stream. She filled them with cool water and carried them to the exhausted soldiers, while the battle raged around them. The men admired her courage and gave her the nickname Molly Pitcher. Later the same day, when Molly's husband collapsed from a heat stroke, Molly took his gun and fought for the rest of the battle. All the soldiers were grateful to Molly. When the war was over, the Pennsylvania legislature gave her a pension for life. That's money that she can use to help live for the rest of her life. Deborah Sampson. A young soldier was wounded in battle. When the doctor examined the wound, he discovered that the soldier was a woman. Her name was Deborah Sampson. Deborah begged the doctor not to give her secret away, and she agreed. She explained that she had wanted very much to fight for American independence, but women were not accepted in the army, so Deborah had disguised herself as a man. Right now we're learning that the battles are really intense in the American Revolutionary War, and we also learned how women can help. Look back at your prediction and make some notes of the ways that women were able to help in war. If you need to, you can pause the video and reread some of the examples that we read together and write down what did women do to help the war. See you tomorrow for our last day of Read Aloud.